Welcome back, everyone. Sheepdog Smokey here, and surprise, surprise, Jacinda Ardern, the New Zealand PM, doesn't understand the United States. I would actually posit that Jacinda does not understand humanity, cause and effect, and so many other things. You see, after the 1960 or 1996, I'm sorry, Port Arthur massacre in Australia, 35 people were left dead. After the recent Christchurch shooting, there were many left dead. And as always, liberals jump to ban the tool used. They don't look at things like hammers, baseball bats, cars, or anything like that when someone is bludgeoned to death or run over. They don't look to anything other than the person when there is not a firearm involved. They look only at the tool when it is a firearm. Now, I can tell you that Jacinda Ardern is wrong. There are no, quote, military-style assault weapons, unquote, in civilian hands, because under the AWB of the 1990s, those are automatic weapons, or select fire. Now, once again, I'm going to explain what the difference in the three types of firearms are. Semi-automatic, you pull the trigger, one round is fired. It does not matter how long you hold the trigger, only that single round will be fired. Yes, there is a possibility of bump firing by improperly holding the weapon, and I stress the word improperly. If you wrap a finger through a belt loop or you put a stick or a twig in between the trigger guard and trigger, it will rock in your hands, and that in turn causes the trigger to be pulled multiple times. It's using Newton's law. There is no action without equal and opposite reaction. The recoil of the weapon forces it to rock in your hands and bump back and forth. And I will be the first to tell you on this channel, before anyone comments, bump firing is stupid because it is unsafe and it is a waste of ammunition, which is a waste of money. I prefer, when I am competing, when I'm hunting, anything of the nature, I prefer, and greatly so, to have only one round fired at a time, because that ensures that that round strikes the target I'm aiming at. I do not like automatic fire. Granted, I did not serve in the U.S. military. I have never been in a situation where I needed to send 30 rounds downrange in a matter of 2 or 3 seconds to deter an assailant from coming any closer. I've not been law enforcement on the street. I was a confinement detention officer. My people were not armed with firearms. And mostly my people were either very low risk, hot checks and such, or just waiting a day or two to be transferred. I've served the longest as a firefighter. My weapon against my enemy was water. But the AR-15 is not a military-style semi-automatic weapon. It is a 22 caliber rifle. Yes, it does have a rail system, or can, which allows you to put a grip or a bipod or a different set of optics or a flashlight on it. No, for anyone who's thinking it, there is no chainsaw attachment. Putting a bayonet on it is stupid. You cannot put a rocket launcher on it. Any of those things. It is simply a 22 caliber rifle. For those who don't believe me, I would encourage you to go to your nearest firearms store, not Dick's Sporting Goods. They are idiots. But go to an Academy Sports, go to a Cabela's, go to an Outdoor World Bass Pro. Better yet, go to a local store where it is not a chain. Ask to see an AR-15 and a Mini 14, and ask for an AR-15 style magazine, and then ask them to put it into the Mini 14, and you will see that it fits. Because in all ways except cosmetic, the Mini 14 and the AR-15 are the same firearm. Both fire the .223 caliber ammunition, which is 22 caliber. In fact, in many places across the United States, .223 caliber ammunition is deemed too weak to go hunting with, because it does not humanely and quickly enough kill the animal. You see the hypocrisy here. The .223 is a weapon of war when anyone uses it improperly and illegally to assault people and murder. But when talking about deer or elk or the like, it is too weak because it does not humanely and swiftly enough kill their prey. It's talking out of both sides of your mouth. Now, if we look to the M4 and eventually the M16, those are military rifles. The M4 is the older version. It is what you will see the Tomb of the Unknown Soldier carrying. But the M16 is what is most often referred to because cosmetically it mirrors many features of the AR platform. There's a simple reason for this. In the 1960s, the Armalite company developed the AR-15 with hopes of selling it to the U.S. military. The military, however, knew that they did not want semi-automatic only when going into a theater of war, so they rejected the platform completely. Then they went to someone who knew how to develop a true military rifle. This ultimately gave the M16 its long life in the U.S. military. The M16 is a select fire weapon. What that means is instead of the AR-15's two-position safety switch, either semi-automatic or safe, the M16 has a four-position switch, safe, semi-automatic, three-shot burst, which means pull the trigger and 3 rounds are loosed, after which you must fully release the trigger and action it again, or fully automatic, at which point you pull the trigger, it fires until you either release the trigger or you run out of ammunition in your magazine. This is a true assault rifle. This was what was banned under the 1990s AWB. There are others. There are those such as what is referred to as the Ma Deuce. This is the huge weapon that you will see set up on a tripod, someone sitting in a brace position behind it. You depress the trigger and it just slings lead at the target. It is only safe or full automatic. There's the minigun, which is a miniature version of what is on the A-10 Warthog. That's why it's called the minigun. Famously, it was used in the movie Predator, where Mac, and I don't want to disparage the movie because it is the quintessential guy movie. Stuff blows up, aliens die. But he fired the weapon until it ran out of ammo from a standing position. And while, yes, the actor who played Mac is a very large person, I don't care how big you are, you're not doing that. Hafthor Bjornsson would not be able to do that due to the sheer force of the recoil of that weapon. That is a full automatic only weapon, and that would have been banned under the AWB, but the AR-15 would not have. And this is where we get into the main point of contention between liberals and conservatives. They see a scary-looking weapon. That's a military weapon. No, it's not. No military on the planet would carry that. But it looks like, it doesn't matter what it looks like. I can get a kit car that looks like a Ferrari Testarossa and put it over a Yugo frame. And I'm still going to have a Rolls Canardly. Rolls down one hill, can hardly get up the next, even though it looks like a Ferrari Testarossa. No one in their right mind would call a Ferrari Testarossa shell over a Yugo frame and engine a sports car or a race car. Just as no one would call a Volkswagen Beetle with a Corvette engine in it, and yes, I've seen video of an idiot trying it, a coupe. It would be a race car because it has the potential to go very fast. And that is what liberals will never admit, is that they are after what is cosmetically scary looking. And they won't admit it because their goal is subjugation. We've lived in this world with democratic styles of governance, all started by the Roman Empire and the Greeks with their Senate, ultimately giving us the forms of government we have today, with a parliamentary monarchy, constitutional monarchy in Britain, a constitutional republic in the U.S., and other forms of, well, I guess you can technically call them democratic governments all over the globe. There is only one in the Middle East, that would be Israel. But what they don't understand, or what they refuse to admit they do, is that the people are the true power. The people elect their leaders, or at least they do until a tyrant like Maduro finally solidifies power enough to where it would not matter if 100% of the Venezuelan voters, including himself and his top brass, voted for someone else. He would be declared the winner. That is tyranny. That is not any form of democracy. But the main point here is that New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern does not understand the United States, because thus far, we are the only country on the planet with a constitution that truly rests the power to edit it in the hands of the people. You see, despite what Booker, Harris, Swalwell, and anyone else would say, they can't just rule on gun control. It's going to be immediately challenged by multiple states, taken to the Supreme Court, and they're properly going to say the Constitution has not been amended, and they are ruling on it and trying to override it. And the Supreme Court, if they have brains in their heads, will rule against the idiot trying to enact tyrannical gun control by fiat. In order to do that, what has to happen is one of two things as step one. Either 2/3, 34 of the 50 states, call for an Article 5 Convention of States, after which delegates are selected by each state, sent to the agreed upon meeting point where amendments are introduced, debated on, ultimately voted yea or nay. Those that pass the vote are sent back to all 50 states, where 38 or 3/4 must ratify them. The amendments do not take effect until ratified. If you want to see an example of that, you can look at the amendment that imposed term limits on the White House. It was ultimately begun under FDR, although he died shortly after the debate began, not passed for quite some time, and only after it passed and was ratified did it take effect. The other option is 2/3 of both houses. Now, 2/3 of the Senate is rather easy. That would be 66.6 or 67 senators. To find out what you need in the House, that is 435 times 0.66, or 287.1, or basically 288 members of the House and 67 members of the Senate must vote yes on an amendment to the Constitution, after which step 2 is the same. Send it to all 50 states. 3/4 of the states, or 38 states, must vote to ratify. That's not going to happen. They know this, and they try to get around it. And unfortunately, we have a populace that does not know civics, does not know their government. Pardon me. Do apologize about that. My mute didn't work. But what you have is the bulk of the world ruled by governments that do not need the will of their people to impose tyranny on them. And they look to the only example of true freedom in the world, the United States, where the government can't just rule on aspects of the Constitution. It must be done in a proper way. And step 2 of the proper way is always send to each state, and their legislatures will vote on it. And if 38 states or more do not vote to ratify, it does not take effect. And there's nothing wrong with, pardon me on that, there's nothing wrong with the government wanting to protect its people. Ours and every other one ostensibly does. But the problem is they go about it the wrong way. Compare Chicago to the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, or compare Chicago to Oklahoma City area. If you look at Chicago versus a large metropolitan area in the South, what you're going to find is that Chicago is light years ahead of the metropolitan southern areas in crime. Because in the South, we don't disarm our people. The right to carry is respected and not challenged. And ultimately, we have less crime. More people die in Chicago every weekend than Dallas-Fort Worth and Oklahoma City combined. And no one wants to look at that simple fact. But I've talked about this long enough. Let me know what you think. As always, remember, when commenting below, keep it civil. We don't learn from argument, we learn from debate. Also, please remember to like and share this article, as well as to subscribe and turn on notifications so that you're the first to know of all new content as it is posted. Until next time, everyone have a wonderful day.